On October 15, 1961, somewhere between the Cortina d'Ampezzo and the town of Veneto Dolomites, Italy, a 16-year-old young man named Andrew was accused of murdering his 4 friends. Since his arrest, Andrew was kept in a dark room where he spent all his time making drawings on the walls. These drawings covered his room and made everyone who saw them feel uneasy. Nobody knew what these drawings meant. The police asked him several questions about the drawings, but he never gave a reasonable response. He just kept on drawing. Andrew was then transferred to a mental institution because it was obvious he needed help. For almost 2 years, Andrew didn't say a word. The doctors kept checking on him, showing him love and affection. Then one day he began to tell his story to a doctor. This is the account of what Andrew told the doctor. It is translated from Italian to English. It was a Saturday evening and the moon was full. We were a group of 5 friends sitting near a campfire in a forest down at Lake Fadera. It was me, Mark, Lisa, Sarah, and Tom. We had planned this camping trip for months, and we couldn't wait to finally have a few days away from our parents nagging our lives out. So, I started the journey on a Friday morning. I helped my friends pack their tents, sleeping bags, and food into the truck. I drove the car, and we were all singing along together with my friends. We sang for hours until they got tired and slept, while I drove a little further. We arrived at the forest entrance around noon and hiked for a few hours to find the perfect camping spot. By evening, we had set up our tents. There were 2 tents, one for the boys and another one for the girls. We were sitting around the campfire roasting marshmallows and telling stories. The forest was peaceful, and we could only feel the breeze shaking the leaves on the tall trees. It felt like we were the only people in the world, and I felt really happy. The happiest I have been in years. I didn't know that happiness was going to be cut short in just a few hours. Eventually the fire began to die down, and we decided to call it a night. I extinguished the fire, zipped up the tent I was in, and settled in for a good night's sleep. The first night was really great. I woke up early, had breakfast, and spent the day hiking and exploring the forest. It was beautiful, with tall trees, brooks, and lots of cool animals. As night fell, we gathered around the campfire again and told jokes about our weird friends at school. We cooked dinner over the fire and enjoyed grilled sausages, baked beans, and roasted corn. It was the perfect end to a perfect day, but it never ended perfectly. After dinner, we decided to play a game of truth or dare. The dares were silly and harmless at first, like doing a funny dance or singing a song. But as the night went on, the dares became more adventurous. "Andrew," Tom called out my name. "I dare you to go into the woods alone and stay there for 10 minutes. I never wanted to do it. The forest looked different at night, with shadows lurking behind every tree, but I didn't want to back down in front of my friends. "Fine," I said, trying to sound brave. "I'll do it." I grabbed a flashlight and got into the woods. The light reflected shadows on the trees, and every sound seemed loud. I walked for a few minutes, then stopped and turned off the flashlight. The darkness was complete, and I could hear my heartbeat. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. I turned around, shining the flashlight in the direction of the sound, but saw nothing. I thought maybe I was imagining things and tried to stay calm. But then I heard it again, louder this time. It sounded like something was moving through the woods and it was getting closer. My heart raced as I tried to see what it was. Then I caught a glimpse of something in the shadows. It was large, much larger than any animal I had ever seen. I couldn't make out its shape, but its eyes glowed in the darkness, staring right at me. I was panicking, and I turned and ran back to the campsite as fast as I could. I ran until I saw the campfire and I was gasping for breath. "There's something out there," I shouted. "Something big." My friends laughed, thinking I was trying to scare them. "Nice try, Andrew," Mark said, clapping me on the back. "You almost had us." "I'm serious," I insisted. "I saw something." But they didn't believe me. We eventually calmed down and went to bed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. So, I got into the tent I shared with Mark and Tom, and I was just lying there awake. I was listening to the sounds of the forest, and it somehow got me really nervous. I can't remember when I fell asleep. I woke up to someone calling out my name. It was Tom. He asked me to escort him to ease himself. I followed him, and we walked just a bit farther from our tents. For some weird reason, he didn't want me to see him. I don't know what his crazy self was trying to hide. So he strolled a little distance and stood right there to do his thing. I could barely see him from where I was standing, but that was okay. All of a sudden, I remembered the creature I had seen before I went to bed. I started feeling nervous, and I needed to check up on Tom. I screamed out his name, but there was no response. I walked to where he was standing, but he wasn't there. I rushed back to the camp and woke everyone up. I told them Tom was missing. They all rushed out of their tents, flashlights in hand, and I took them to where he was standing. He wasn't there. We went back to our tent thinking maybe he could have wandered back, but it was empty. His sleeping bag and belongings were scattered. Everyone started panicking as we realized something terrible had happened. "Where's Tom?" Lisa yelled. "I don't know," I said, fear gripping me. "But we need to find him." We fanned out, searching the immediate area, but there was no sign of Tom. The forest seemed to close in around us. As we regrouped at the campsite, I started feeling so scared. Immediately we heard Sarah scream and kept pointing at the sky. We looked up and saw Tom's shirt filled with blood and hanging on a tree branch. The tree was really tall, and there was no way in the world Tom would have climbed up there. The truth was that something was out there, and it had taken Tom. And that was just the beginning. Tom was gone, and the fear in our eyes was unmistakable. No one spoke, but I felt it. It was an unseen presence, roaming in the darkness. "Stay close," Mark whispered to us. "We can't split up." Together with the others, we formed a tight circle with our backs to the fire. I told everyone to put on their flashlights and point at the shadows. We needed to see this creature clearly in case it wanted to attack again. I could only hear the squeaking of the birds. It was a calm and bloody night until Sarah broke the silence. "Do you think it's the creature?" Sarah asked. "I don't know," I replied. "But whatever it is, it's dangerous." Hours passed, and the darkness seemed to stay on forever. I just lost a friend to something we cannot even explain. I was so nervous and I could literally count each beat my heart took. I needed to get home that second, but how? Immediately Lisa screamed. I turned to see her pointing at the tree. "Watch out! I saw something move!" We all shone our flashlights in the direction she indicated, but we saw nothing. "It's like you're just seeing or hearing things that are in your imagination," Mark said, but his voice was shaky, and I could see the fear in his eyes. "We can't stay out here," I said. "Let's head back to the truck," Mark suggested. I quickly packed my things and kept my flashlights pointed at the surrounding forest. The walk back was draining, and the path seemed longer in the dark with the trees closing in on us. I began to feel that we may not be able to make it out alive. As we got near the parking area, I heard a low growl echoing through the trees, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps. They were coming from behind us. "Run!" Mark shouted. I ran down the path, and the creature's footsteps were growing louder. Lisa was just ahead of me, running and breathing heavily. I could hear Mark and Sarah behind us. In the blink of an eye, something came from the right side like a wind, grabbed up Lisa, and vanished into thin air. There were splashes of blood on my face because I was just in front of her when she was taken. "Lisa, no!" I screamed, but it was too late. Her screams echoed through the forest, a horrifying sound that I knew would haunt me forever. I wanted to help her, but I knew it was impossible, so I turned and I ran. "Keep running!" Mark shouted. I didn't stop until I got to where our truck was, panting and out of breath. Sarah was sobbing uncontrollably, and Mark's face was filled with fear. "What the hell is that thing?" he gasped. "I don't know, but we can't stay here." "We have to get help," Sarah cried. "We need to find someone who can stop it." Mark fumbled with his keys, his hands trembling. "Get in the car," he yelled. I quickly opened the car, throwing myself in, and Mark started the engine. Just as we began to pull away, the creature was hiding in the trees, and it was looking at us. It let out a roar. I could see Lisa's blood dripping from its maw. "Go, go, go," I screamed, and Mark floored the gas pedal. The car sped down the narrow dirt road and the creature chased us. Its speed was frightening, and it got closer to the car. The creature climbed on the car, with its massive weight on the roof. I screamed as it clawed at the metal. Mark swerved the truck violently, trying to shake it off, but it kept steady. "Hold on!" Mark shouted, and he went off the road, crashing into a tree. The impact threw the creature off, and it tumbled into the forest with a furious snarl. I got out of the wrecked car with my friends, and our bodies were bruised and battered. "We need to keep moving," I said. "It won't stay down for long." We went through the forest using only the light from the moon. I had lost my flashlight, and none of us had any light on us. The creature's roars echoed behind us, and it was growing closer with each passing second. I could feel its hot breath on my neck. I started running, while my friends followed behind. We ran through the thick trees and found ourselves at the edge of a cliff. "There's nowhere to go," Sarah cried. Mark turned to face the creature. "Get behind me," he ordered. "I'll hold it off." I protested because I knew Mark couldn't fight that creature. "I have to try," he said. "Go, Andrew. Take Sarah with you and leave this place." Mark was trying to be brave, but I could see the fear and anxiety in his eyes. Tears streamed down my face as I grabbed Sarah's hand and backed away. Mark stood his ground with a big tree branch in his hand, ready to fight. I looked back for a moment and saw the creature standing in front of Mark. It was 9 times his size. Its eyes were fixed on Mark, and he swung the branch with all his might, striking the creature across the face. It didn't even try to dodge. With a roar, it attacked Mark, and its claws sliced through the air. Mark fought bravely, but it was no use. The creature was too powerful. It pinned him to the ground with its jaws biting off his neck. I could hear the sickening sound of how his bones were broken from where I was hiding with Sarah. She was sobbing quietly while holding me tightly. It was just the 2 of us tucked away in the forest with no light, vehicle, food, or even our friends. I thought about all the good memories I've had with Tom, Lisa, and Mark. "Mark!" I shouted, but there was no response. The creature stood over his lifeless body, its eyes turning to us. "We have to jump," I said, my voice trembling. "It's our only chance." Sarah nodded, and we backed up to the edge of the cliff. I prepared to jump. "On 3, I said. 1, 2, 3. We jumped into the darkness, and the last thing I saw was the creature, standing at the edge of the cliff, its eyes glowing in the moonlight. And then everything went black. I woke up with a sharp pain and my vision was blurry. I tried to move, but my muscles were hurting hell. I looked around and I couldn't find Sarah. I searched the trees and the grasses, but she wasn't there. I stood there confused and worried. I mean, we jumped off the cliff together, and she just disappeared. I walked a bit of distance and I saw flies perching around an object lying on the grass. I didn't know what it was, so I walked close. I could immediately recognize what I saw. It was Sarah's hand. I knew it was hers because of the friendship bracelet she was wearing. I broke down in tears and I cried. I've never cried that much in my entire life. The creature has killed all my friends and I'm left alone in the middle of nowhere. I grabbed Sarah's hand into my backpack and started running. I thought it would bring a form of closure to her family. It was the only way I could at least pay respect to the memories of my friends who passed, if I made it out alive. I ran through the forest and the tree branches tore my clothes and skin. The creature's roars echoed in my ears, a horrifying reminder of what it had done to my friends. I wasn't sure if I could go any further. I burst out of the trees and onto a tarred road. I saw a car approaching me. I started waving at it and praying it would stop. The car stopped, and the driver came out rushing towards me. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Help," I gasped. "There's something in the woods. It killed my friends." The driver helped me into the car and sped off, leaving the forest behind. I had made it out, but at what cost? He volunteered to take me to the hospital since he saw a few bruises, but I refused. I had a mission to accomplish, so I went straight to Sarah's house. I got there and knocked, and her parents came out. They were confused and scared when they saw my bruises and splashes of blood on my clothes. I narrated everything that happened to them and brought out Sarah's hand from my backpack. That was when all hell broke loose. Her dad hurriedly went inside and brought out his phone to call the cops, while her mum was crying uncontrollably. They thought I murdered my friends and came up with a stupid story about a creature. The police arrived, and I was arrested and taken to the station for allegedly killing my friends during a camping trip. I was interrogated severally by different officers about what killed my friend. Sometimes I would say it was a monster, then a vampire, and maybe a demon. I don't know. I can't even think about it. At the police station, I thought the nightmare was over, but the memories haunted me. I couldn't sleep. The creature's glowing eyes were always in my dreams. I started hearing its growls, seeing its shadow in every corner. My mind was messed up. I started talking to myself, trying to make sense of what had happened. I needed to understand why it had spared me. Was I different? Was there something about me that it recognized? I began drawing on the walls, trying to describe the creature's likeness. My room was filled with images. Not even the police believed my story about the creature. They thought I was crazy. Or maybe I am. That's why they brought me here. But I know the truth. The creature was real. It had killed my friends and spared me for a reason. Why did it let me live? I can't really say. Finally, when I was sleeping, the answer came to me. The creature had recognized something in me, something it had seen before. Maybe it saw a kindred spirit, someone who understood the darkness that lurked in the human soul. Or maybe it simply enjoyed the hunt and wanted to leave a survivor to tell the tale.